Welcome to the Power Platform Show. Thanks for joining me today. I hope today's guest inspires and educates you on the possibilities of the Microsoft Power Platform. Now, let's get on with the show. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We are on air for another episode brought to you by Cloud Lighthouse, of course. Always new announcements happening as our business grows in the market. I take it you'll be listening to this. I'm guessing we will be at Dynamics Minds and we'll be recording additional episodes at that point. But it's exciting times. The world's changing. You know, large language models are coming out just about every single day. We're getting new ones. They're getting more intelligent. We can do more with them. But today we're going to talk about why the IT project is dead and why. It's one of my favorite lines, right? Why something else is dead.
Why is it dead, Mark?
I think you need to give some context on that.
And what's replacing it. But with that, Anna, I'm going to throw to you to really kick us off today.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Really glad to be back. I feel like I haven't been on an episode. Yeah, it's been a while for me. Thanks for still having me back.
You left Mark and I alone with Will.
Not on purpose. I would never do that. I would never, ever do that. Because poor Will.
Well
played.
Today, we're going to talk about IT projects. And everyone's like, what? Like, that's our bread and butter. But the way, where we come from with this subject is how IT projects are actually set up. How does a customer build an IT project? How does a partner build an IT project? Oh my God.
For those of you who will not see this in the final cut, Chris's screen just froze with him drinking a margarita.
I'm very jealous.
We all are.
And actually, that's a good opportunity. If you're listening to this podcast, right, just the audio, remember the podcast is always done with video. So, you can check it out on YouTube. There's a playlist for the ecosystem show, and you can watch us and not just listen to us.
So yeah, just to finish off, what we mean by the IT project is dead. We mean the traditional IT project where you would go, as a partner, and you would bid for a contract, and you would go and pretend, because frankly that was always the case, that you're gonna work for about 12 months to 18 months on a project, and then the customer is gonna take it over, and then you're gonna go on and work on other projects, and everything will be just like milk and honey. You'll just have like a managed services team to keep the lights on. Everything was very good in theory. It was never like this, but that's what we thought or relied for ourselves that it would be. Yeah, so this was about the ID project. What do you think, Chris, with your margarita?
Hold on.
I think we should say that Chris, by the time we are finished with this today, Chris will probably have been recording podcasts for 3 straight hours. And what time is it? It's almost 10 o'clock at night in the United Kingdom.
Wow.
Yeah, I started a long time ago.
And he probably did a full day of work and woke up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym.
I need to tell you guys the greatest story before I talk about IT projects. So today, I woke up and I have to come to Manchester for Government Day tomorrow. I don't know what Government Day is, but it's a thing. There's an acronym that goes with it. It's like local partner, fantastic, awesome people of network, whatever. Anyway, so
are the robot toasters coming?
I feel like I should be there,
nice.
Chris.
You want to come to Government Day? I'll send you an invite.
I would have loved to, yeah.
So, like, I packed my stuff. I got my bags ready last night. I packed my stuff. I'm like, sweet, I'm ready for Government Day. Then what I did is I rushed out because I was on a call to Amy, one of our PMs, and I got on the train and I'm like, sick, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm going to do some email. Guess what I left behind?
Your computer.
I left my laptop behind. I'm on a rental, yeah. So I'm literally like hanging out with what I remember my charger.
How do you forget something like that?
Yeah, I cannot even imagine. That is the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah. So the last conference, I left my charger behind. This time I left my laptop behind, but I have my charger for all the laptops I can't charge. So We're in a good place. We're in a great place.
What do we think about the concept of borrowing a laptop?
No, so I went back to A&S and I'm like, A&S people, my polar bear ate my laptop. Can I have a new one? And they're like, yeah. So now I have a rental laptop from them.
Yeah, but how do you feel about it? About borrowing a laptop?
It's kind of like
that's not yours.
What other grubby fingers have been on that trackpad?
Well, the thing is, what I can tell you now is that all the vowel keys work, which is cool. Because my laptop, none of the vowel keys work because I'm so brutal on them. So because I type so hard, right? So A, E, I,
I don't even know what to think.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is.
Chris types the way he talks.
Yeah, I do, right? Like,
in vowels.
In vowels. So,
Chris was the guy who I believe one year at a conference, this was at the after party, and by the end of the night, you were talking only in vowels.
It's underwater Swahili, bro. It's how I normally talk. So back onto projects. That's a great question, Anna. First of all, hire a project manager who can look after their laptop. What I've learned is,
can you imagine Chris as a project manager? Oh my God.
I think he would be an awesome project manager. I'm here to tell you I worked with Chris, and Chris is pretty organized.
Mm-hmm.
I know he doesn't look like he is, but he never misses a deadline.
That's right.
Or anything. So he remembers everything, to be fair.
I do. That's correct. Thank you, Anna.
Are you okay in the head tonight?
I wanted to carry on swirling. No, so listen, I've been on podcasts and I've been on for like 4 hours. So I think from a project point of view, like we've had to de-educate people on actually what a project is. Because they have this thing in their head. They're like, okay, we're gonna take a thing and we're gonna make it into another thing. And then when we're done, right? And these are our deliverables, and we have deliverables, and then we're awesome. And even the frameworks are designed for like these hardcore deliverables and things that you make. But the thing that makes me laugh so much, right, is that when you look at tools that we're using now, the tech is moving so fast. Your deliverable can't be delivered by the same thing that you decided to deliver in the first place. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So how is that possible? Like you can't, it doesn't work, right? So the whole idea is that you have to be able to move. I feel like a project is more of it's like water. It's got to be a fluid thing, right?
So Mark is right. The project really is dead. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think that we need to make the distinction here, right? In that there are still a lot, I just can't with Chris at this drink. So my distinction is that there are still a lot of consultancies out there delivering using an outdated project-based model. And there are still a lot of customers that are out there trying to buy IT projects, right? So we're almost talking in the future and saying the IT project is dead. Right now, I think that the traditional IT project is largely dead, but most people don't yet realize it. And loads of consultancies and customers are trying very desperately to cling to this very, I think, fundamentally outdated way of doing business. And since you all have given me an opening by not talking over me, I'm going to continue with my thesis on this, right? So,
I'm sorry, Andrew, I just wanted to say something.
We've gotten to a point on the podcast where we either just, and by the way, it's not a podcast anymore, Mark, I hear it's a show.
It's a show. And Andrew, I need to confess the fact that I did get an email about our dinner reservation tomorrow night. So I was looking through that and mapping us. So that's why I kind of didn't interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Nice. So it is my birthday tomorrow, and Anna is taking me out to, I think, a very fancy place. And I do like very fancy dinner.
You seem to have had a birthday for the entire month. I've seen so many messages about your birthday this, your birthday that. I'm just like, my gosh, this is amazing.
It's his birthday year, Mark. He celebrates his birthday. Wake us up at the first.
Always the case. Oh, ever since Andrew had his midlife crisis, he started appreciating his birthday. So now we're on full-on party. We're going to go to dinner tomorrow, and then I'm sure we're going to party with you guys next week at Dynamics Minds.
Mm-hmm. Actually, and I'm touched by this. For the second year in a row, the people at DocCentric are planning a blowout birthday party for me.
Let's take a quick break.
Are you ready to transform your career in just 90 days? Join me on the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge and unlock your full potential. As I listen to the podcast, enroll now and get 10% off using the code MBAP. That's MBAP at the checkout. Don't miss this opportunity to learn from industry leaders and accelerate your growth. Visit ako.nz365guy.com and start your journey today.
It's just so amazing. And that cake was the best cake ever last year.
It was. It
Yo,
was.
that cake was so good.
So,
What's cake?
So I can't recover from that.
Okay, the project. I'm just so sorry that I wasn't paying attention before when you said your stuff, which I'm sure was very clever.
It was. It was quite clever. Thank you. So my thesis on this, right, is that there's the reason that the traditional IT project is dying. And we can get into, well, what is it going to become? But there are some overlapping forces here. One of them is that the cloud has, over the last decade or so, just fundamentally changed the nature of what managed services are, right? Like of what happens after the project. It used to be that you could have a booming business of patching and upgrading and turning dials and making sure all the blinky lights were blinking in the right way. And that's just not what managed services is becoming. And I hear a lot of people out there that are, they're almost asking the wrong question about managed services. They're saying, how can I take my managed services practice and make it effective in the years to come? Whereas I think the right question is, well, maybe this notion of you have the people who do the projects and you have the people who do the managed services, maybe that's what needs to be thrown out, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's that managed services force. I think that there is, what Chris and I have geeked out about for years, right? This idea of the tyranny of the deliverable, right? So the old way of budgeting and executing an IT project was that someone would come up with a basket of requirements. That basket of requirements would get budget attached to it, and you would give it to the team that does app dev, or the team that does data engineering, or the team that does RPA, or the team that does whatever. But the nature of the technology itself is becoming much more so that all of these technologies overlap and they need one another. You can't just have an app project. You cannot just have a data project.
I want to just say that the DevOps Institute actually started saying that managed services teams are no more, and you need a mix of those skills in like 2008 or 2018 or 2019. And this is what they were teaching people at the time, but no one was really listening because DevOps sounds very technical and boring, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I remembered all of that because I've been to India 2 weeks ago. Thank you, Clever Digital, for sending me to India.
It was a brilliant trip. Anna loved the food.
Shut up. I did struggle with the food a little bit.
Wow, did you really?
I did. I just couldn't.
Too spicy or what?
Yeah, my tummy couldn't get it to a point where, my team was there and everyone like wanted to be so helpful. So there was this colleague of mine who would yell from our restaurant table, no matter where we were, to be like, get her something bland. So that was great. But anyway, this India team, they started small together with the rest of our organization used to be called Cloud Thing. And it was a small firm, and they would do projects, right? And they would do a continuous improvement plan, which would be sort of like a managed services plan, keeping the lights on. All of the blinky lights would blink in a certain way, exactly like Andrew described. I was talking to someone someone there, someone pretty high up, very, very smart guy. And he was like, look, I've been trying to tell you guys, we grew and technology evolved. We need to change the nature of how we do things. Contracts should be different, and obviously the newer contracts are different, and we're working in a different way. It kind of hit home with what I knew from the DevOps Institute, with how teams should be built and how we estimate for things. And exactly like you're saying, there's no more managed services. How do we revolutionize this so that it works?
Well, and I think, Anna, to your point, right, these are things that, say, the DevOps Institute have been talking about for some time. What I think was potentially missing from that equation back in, I think you said 2018 when they first started talking about this, what was missing from that equation then may very well have been the economic imperative, right? So this condition with the cloud is not new, right? This transition out of the old managed services model has been underway for some time. The same goes for the differences, for the convergence of tech, where you can't just have an app project or a data project, et cetera. But I think that the ingredient that is not today, when we're recording on the 20th of May, 2024, not everyone has felt this yet, but people are going to feel this in the next 12 to 24 months in a big way. And that is that the nature of these projects and what has driven these projects has been this focus on monolithic core business systems. I'm going to install or upgrade my ERP or my CRM or my HR information system or whatever your core business system of choice might be. And for a very long time, we had consultancies had a very cyclical, stable business model where every 5 to 7 years, their customers were going to need to undertake a big project to upgrade. And what we are now at is we're on the downward slope where most of these core business systems have been moved to the cloud in some form of a PaaS or SaaS architecture, where the upgrades or the updates to these systems are being pushed on a fairly incremental but regular basis. So partners around the world, consultancies around the world, are about to see this historic stream of cyclical revenue vanish. And that, I think, might be the economic imperative that pushes them over the edge to seek new business models. Though, unfortunately, I don't think enough of them are going to figure this out. I think they're going to try very, very desperately to cling to this old-fashioned model of project-based work because that's their bread and butter. And they're going to have a huge innovator's dilemma. And I think we're going to see some partners, a lot of partners actually in the coming years, really start to fail.
Yeah, we called this, though. This has been a long time in the making. I mean, we said the same thing about niche little canvas apps. It's like, oh, in the beginning, we'll have Bob and Mary make some niche canvas apps for some people, and then
Craplet, it's called, Chris. It's called a Craplet, and her name was Sally from HR.
and all of a sudden, Craplets go. It's the same thing with like these upgrades, right? Like, oh no, we'll make all our earth money from doing upgrades and this junk, and now it's going away. The thing that bothers me though is that like it's not as if people haven't been warned though. Like we've said to people, dudes, sort your shit out. Go and learn about enablement. Go and learn about driving governance. Go and learn about driving security. Like, think about the wider data platform.
Wait, you mean customers? We told customers to do that?
No, partners. We told partners.
Yeah.
We told
Okay,
partners.
good.
Anna, you and me told partners to do that.
I know. What a great team, hey?
Yeah. We have a slide. Do you remember making a slide at Microsoft where it was that horrible green color, but I had at the top right, I'm like, advisory. Advisory is your thing you need to do here to help people understand their wider ecosystem. And they were like, oh, what is this thing that makes no sense? And even the partner I'm with now, we're trying to drive advisory, and they're kind of getting it, but it's hard, right? Because it doesn't have a tangible outcome every time. It's not like, oh, look, I have a thing to put a lemon and lime juice in. It's way bigger than that. And that's what you call a wicked problem. And actually, if you listen to what Paul Cumsey talks about, Paul's great, right? Like I love his books and stuff. But he talks about actually people are so fixated on solving the simple problem because they understand the defined outcome, right? Whereas actually what we're trying to solve is a wicked problem, which is systemic with a lot of way more wicked problems underneath. And that's hard, right? And people don't want to accept the fact that it's there.
Well, and what's happening, part of why this is a wicked problem is because it is the status quo at present is maintained by the bad behavior of both the customer and the provider of service, right?
Yeah.
So on the provider of service side, on the partner side, you have these organizations, many of them at this point who are owned by private equity or some other kind of growth centric investment model, right? Have this imperative to not implode their traditional revenue stream, right? So I see on the partner side a lot of resistance to trying these new business models and moving away from the cash cow that was the project-based model. And to this point, it's actually suited these partners quite well because on the customer side, you have a way of budgeting within IT departments that, like I said earlier, basically says, I have a basket of requirements. I am going to tie it to a line item of budget, and I'm going to go out to the market and ask for people who can meet these requirements for me and be done with it. But I think that this strange arrangement that weirdly keeps partners in the past and costs customers way more than it should, we got to be close to a shatter point here, right, guys?
I don't think that it keeps partners in the past. I feel like people can just not move as fast. Like they need the cash, the cash cow. They're not all Cloud Lighthouse or brand new and like.
Cloud Lighthouse is not an implementation partner, just to be clear.
Exactly, right? So for an implementation partner, how do you do that from an implementation partner perspective?
Well, let's ask the question. So what's next? What if we agree, and it sounds like we do, that the old way of working is not the future way of working, what replaces it, guys?
So one thing I've noticed is that customers are much more mature nowadays than in the past when they used to. I know, Chris, we'll debate this in a second. What I mean by mature is that, my 20 years have been in the space. In the early days, when you would go in and you would present to a customer the concept of dynamics back then, these are comments that I remember getting. I thought Microsoft only did the operating system, Windows. Isn't that theirs? Do they only do servers? Like, what is this? Like, and so you always you had to explain what the technology could do and how it could enable. Now, a customer doesn't come to market and go, what is this dynamics thing? It's an established product in market. They've probably got a couple of people on their team that have been involved in those type of projects in the past. What I am noticing is that in the past, a customer would have a much greater degree of dependency on their implementation partner because they didn't know. They hadn't implemented technology like this. Now you're dealing with a market that is implemented, and I'm not saying that particular company, but they've got staff on board that have been involved in these projects in the past. They've got an opinion. They've got an opinion about Dynamics and its various workloads. They've got an opinion even about Power Platform. And the one I find funny about the Power Platform, it's the whole elephant analogy, right? One's holding the tail and go, I know what the Power Platform does. Someone else holding the trunk and going, no, it does this, right? There's a massive amount of confusion on the concept of the Power Platform. I even noticed this in Microsoft. Microsoft staff, will go, I only sell Dynamics. I don't sell the Power Platform. And you're just like, I don't think you understand how this all works because it is the Power Platform, But I'm noticing that customers are going, you know what? We don't need a partner to come in and embed themselves in our organization for the next 2 to 3 years, charge us amazingly crazy bills and workloads and stuff, and for workloads that are never ending, because I think they've got, I remember that one of the big consulting brands, Chris, you've worked for them, they would go in, right? And they would understand, this is my engagement experience with them, they would understand the price point this customer would buy at, right? So it wasn't about pricing a project to what the project cost. It was understanding about what gets a contract signed. And they would get a contract signed, and let's say the contract for the customer was, let's say, 1.5 mil. And they were like, okay, we're allocating 1.5 mil. And so no matter how, let's say it was a $3 million piece of work, the price that it was sold on was 1.5 million. 4 years later, after 6 million had been spent, right? Because of the, hey, change request, let's check another change request. Oh no, we didn't scope that. It's just CR, you know, and these things would grow up. And I think the customer has got to the point of going, let's not play that game. Let's play it that we run our own projects and we will bring in resource where we need. The problem with that, that's also fraught with problems. The problem with that model is that they bring people in inside their organization to actually oversee and run the project.
Yeah.
And because they're part of the embedded customer, they're in the politics of that organization. And I often also find that when customers run their own projects, they also blow out budget-wise because there's a whole different dynamic in play.
But they blow it out differently, though. It's very political. It's always very political. And what are we talking about? There's no budget. Like, whenever I see fixed price, I cringe.
Oh, I like fixed price.
Exactly like Chris said. There's no, you like a fixed price.
I'll tell you why, but
there's no, we're going to deliver that in like 18 months time, because everything just changes so rapidly. Yeah.
I think that and I don't want to lose track of what Anna just said in 18 months time, but this is something that I've been, this is another rehashed DevOps principle, right? But with some of these more experimental AI implementations or development of AI native workloads, differential AI, we have called it. I've been advising organizations to be much more, basically to make small, measured investment, demand that you see progress, not progress as a finished product, right? I want to see that this augmented LLM works after a couple weeks of work. So this is sort of, two of these things go hand in hand, right? One is that you make the small investment towards incremental progress. But the other is that you have to be willing as an organization to walk away from a sunk cost, right? You have to be willing as an organization to say, you know what? Yes, we invested some money. Yes, we let the development of this particular AI thing go on for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 6 months, right? But I do think that you get to a point, and I'm not exactly sure where this is, but that, after a couple of months, often after a couple of weeks, if the thing is going to work or not. Yeah. But you have to have the courage to walk away from something that doesn't seem like it's going to pan out.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I have a lot to wheel around on here.
Is that our next episode?
Might be. I just want to say something to what Mark said, right? I don't think all customers are that clued up. Can I tell you guys about a really shitty experience I had last week? Mainly because of me. But I spoke to a customer who's in higher education. The people that were on the call were solution architects in the business for 25 years plus. Okay. They were obsessed with the use case. Obsessed. They're like, how are you going to drive ROI with Copilot? I'm like, dude, how do you drive ROI with Excel? Like, what was your use case?
Is this the call where where everyone hung up on you?
Yeah, 3 people left the call. Yeah. Yeah, you motherfuckers know.
Overhand 5.
Yeah. And it was interesting because he didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. And I'm like, but it's obvious, right? Like, what is your use case for Excel? What is your use case for Word? No, we need to have money and define ROI for this thing. And I'm like, but you don't know what the thing is yet, right? Like, the use case of Copilot is not, I'm going to merge a document with the documents and then I'm going to put a value against it. That's not how it works. It's always going to be scenario driven. It's always going to plug into the wider discussion you have with your business. And that therein is the tyranny of the deliverable. It's saying we're trying to focus on the tiny little thing that drives a monetary value, and you don't understand the wider picture yet. And it's very classic of what I would call the waterfall view. When we're looking at it from the top of the waterfall, we see everything, okay? But when you're in the middle or the bottom of the waterfall, when you look up, you can't see anything. But when you look down, you only see your little periphery and your little world. And the problem that we have with places like this is that when organizations like that try and adopt new tech, it is people like that that make them fall drastically behind. And that's a problem, and it's a big problem.
That is such a good analogy. And actually, I remember a real life scenario. I was in South Africa, of all places, doing canyoning.
Anna has had the best adventures.
Correct. On top of like a waterfall, and I was supposed to like dive into it so I could see everything. And I thought that I saw everything, exactly like we think we see everything when we set up a project, right? And then I jumped into the waterfall because I didn't have, a child, so I was brave. And when I jumped into the waterfall, there was a tiny snake. It was brown, and it was incredibly dangerous. So the guy like who was guiding us was trying to get me away from there. And it's just such a good analogy. Exactly. When you dive into like the project, there could be these very tiny deadly snakes. And he's like, you're going to die in like 30 seconds. You better like fuck off. Sorry.
Yeah.
And on that note.
Okay.
But it's just like, it's a great analogy to a project. We should use it more often.
I like it. I'm going to have to wrap there, guys. We're at time. It's been a great discussion. Remember, this show's brought to you by Cloud Lighthouse. We hope to see you back again, if not at Dynamics Minds next week. But if you've got commentary that you want to add to what we're talking about, or you have some special insights and you'd like to come on a podcast with us, let us know. Reach out. We're all available on LinkedIn. We're pretty out there in different channels of how you can communicate with us. But thank you, and see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If there's a guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me on LinkedIn. If you want to be a supporter of the show, please check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. Stay safe out there and shoot for the stars.